So I finished the first of the self-authoring programs today, and it had to contended with the future, my own future, and it was a challenge, I gotta say. Basically, asked you all these questions about how you want to, how you see yourself in the future, and your relationship with that, essentially. Who do you admire? Basically trying to figure out, give you the framework, if you haven't articulated it to yourself yet, give you the framework to build structure and place your values within, and then build a plan for your life from there, from here and into the future. So it was really cool. It's hard to do. It was broken up into 2 segments. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go to selfauthoring.com. And this guy, Jordan Peterson, who I talk a good bit about on this show, and I've listened to his podcast and watched videos of him giving lectures and like out on the street talking with people. It's a program he and some other psychologists developed, and they give you all this information about how writing about yourself actually can improve your overall health and stuff like that. So there was one particular guy who did a bunch of really in-depth studies about this. So I finished the first one today. Apparently, even though it's the first one listed on the site, the first project listed on the site, you can... he says it's not exactly the best place to start. The best place to start is with the one having to do with the present. So there's sort of past, present, and future, and then the present one is broken up into virtues and maybe vices, or I can't remember how faults and virtues, about your personality. So it basically gives you the framework or the structure to write about yourself, to articulate about yourself that which you may know instinctively, but you haven't articulated yet. So it was a really cool project, and I'm excited to kind of move on to the subsequent steps. So today is Saturday, and it's good to have a day off work, or free of other particular obligations. Yesterday, I spent some time applying or putting this podcast and its feed to iTunes and Stitcher and TuneIn, which is another podcast app, if you guys haven't heard of those. So I was happy to have found them all uploaded to those sites and the stream plugged in. So if you want to listen on the podcast app on your iPhone, or download either of those other apps, Stitcher or TuneIn, feel free to do that. And it's exciting to have that a bit of exposure now. I got definitely a bump on the old SoundCloud stream, which is where people are finding the podcast through iTunes. So let's see what else. Tomorrow, this guy Jacob Shute is coming on the show, and I'm gonna have a conversation with him. He's a movie buff. I think I've talked about having him on the show before, but he's just an interesting guy who lives here in the town I live in Michigan, and he's like a movie buff. Yeah, I said that. And he's just good at talking about stuff, and he reminds me of my brother Joe, and maybe even me to some degree. So, but he just has his own particular interest and set of things that he's good at talking about, and so I'll pick his brain about music pick his brain about some movies and things of that nature, and I'm excited to see where that conversation goes and how it takes off. That's all I have for today. Just a quick little update. I know it's not the regular 10 minutes, but I just wanted to sort of practice my bit of podcasting every day sort of thing that is part of that system that I have going. And just so you know, sometimes if I don't post a podcast, I I usually do one, like I'll talk into a microphone at least and record it, and sometimes do a video, but it doesn't always make it onto the podcast. But the other thing is, recently I've been trying to establish a little more of my skill set, or build my skill set so that I'm more valuable person, and for potential employers and things like that. So one of those is doing sort of visual image software, like something like Photoshop. There's a free one online that's like crowdsourced. What's the word I'm looking for? That's built. Oh, there's a particular term for it. Basically built by the whole community, and that one is it's called GIMP, and so I've been sort of like running through some tutorials on there, and also the new theme music that you just heard in the beginning of this podcast is thanks to Stefan Yazvek for providing that. We may be doing some more stuff together in the future. So that's all I have for today. Please go like us on Twitter, and subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher and stuff like that if you want to get regular updates. And hope you guys have a great week. This is John Davey. Have a good time.